read Emily Wilson's version of the Odyssey, so you don't have to. I've been enjoying my vacation back in the USA to see family and participate in the big 250th birthday party for the United States of America. And since it's normal to have some nice light reading when you go on vacation, I decided to read Emily Wilson's version of the Odyssey, which is the one that Christopher Nolan has relied on for his upcoming film adaptation. There's been a lot of online chatter about this book, and depending on which political camp you fall in, it's either a fresh and modern take on an old story or woke feminist garbage that's out to destroy Western civilization. All the hubbub made me want to read the book for myself, and as usual, I'm coming at it with a more moderate position, which means I'm probably going to make everyone mad. But that's okay. The Odyssey isn't a story, it's the story, or half the story. The first half is the Iliad, which tells of the Trojan War, which lasted 10 years. The second half is the Odyssey, which covers the journeys of Odysseus during the 10 years after the war's conclusion. Together, the Iliad and Odyssey address the two most relatable topics in all of literature. Who am I? As in, finding out who you really are when you're faced with overwhelming, unavoidable, possibly deadly challenges. And I want to go home. The themes and characters of Homer's epic poems are infused into the Western canon. So if you're going to do a translation, you better get it right. Is Emily Wilson's version of the Odyssey fresh and modern, or is it woke garbage? My honest opinion, it's neither. It's mostly just kind of pretentious and boring. A compliment I can give Emily Wilson's version of the Odyssey is that it's accessible. It uses mostly 1 or 2 syllable words and a lot of good plain English, and I mean that as a compliment. A teenager would have no trouble understanding it, and you don't have to know anything about classic literature or ancient Greece to know what's going on in the story. In the middle for me is Wilson's choice to use blank verse to tell this story. The original ancient Greek is in dactylic hexameter, and this is a poetic meter that's made up of 6 little chunks of 3 syllables each, so it's almost like a waltz. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. More stress on the first of each group of 3. And this is a format that works really, really well for the Greek language, but it's kind of awkward in English, and waltzes can end up sounding a little bit light or even silly. So what she decided to do, and this does make sense to a degree, she decided to use the poetic form that is native to English for more high poetry, which is iambic pentameter.
If you're an archaic Greek bard, you use dactylic hexameter. If you're an English poet, I think the equivalent is iambic pentameter. It's the meter of Shakespeare, it's the meter of Chaucer. I mean, I wanted to bring out the ways that the Homeric poems are poems which have their own long tradition behind them.
Shakespeare used this a lot in his longer speeches, where you would still have those 10-syllable lines, but it doesn't have to rhyme, and you're allowed to, say, break a sentence off halfway through and then restart it on the next line. And blank verse gives English language kind of a nice structure to it, but without locking it into too rigid of a form of poetry.
To die, to sleep no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the 1,000 natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep. To sleep. A chance to dream.
I get why she chose this, because if dactylic hexameter is the poetic form that's native to the high culture of ancient Greece, and iambic pentameter is the one that's native to English, sure, that makes sense. You're kind of translating the poetic form. But then the problem is, because she had that really, really plain word choice that I talked about at the beginning, it's kind of like a tuxedo t-shirt as opposed to a tuxedo. You're using really plain, really, really simple language that's accessible, but then you're using a sort of hoity-toity poetic form to show it off, and it kind of ends up sounding like a parody of William Shatner's acting style. Like in this passage, "Here is the thing I really want to know. Have you been here before? Are you a friend who visited my father? Many men came to his house. He traveled many places." See what I mean about the word choice being so plain that it's just kind of boring? Wilson was free to translate this however she liked, but I think it would have worked better if maybe she'd used a few more poetic word choices to just enhance the imagery and the immersion and sort of give it more of that loftier, long ago and far away feel. And now I'll tell you what you really want to hear, which is what I don't like about this translation, or really a retelling. For me, in order to qualify as a translation, the author has to try to stick to the original meaning and style of the text as much as possible. Nothing will ever go perfectly from one language to another, but a true translation doesn't dump any of the new author's opinions onto the text. When I do my own very simple translations for Fireside Fairy Tales, I try really hard not to change the meaning of the original story. My job is not to tell the story the way I think it should be. My job is to tell the story the way it is. Emily Wilson sometimes makes word choices that are informed more by her personal opinions than what's in the original Greek. The evidence of a bit of ego comes with the fact that there's like a 90-page introduction to her version of the Odyssey. It's a slog, and it's completely packed with her opinions about the text, and she makes it very clear that you're supposed to have those opinions too. If you do end up picking up a copy of Emily Wilson's Odyssey, I genuinely recommend skipping right past the introduction because it is boring, it takes forever to get through, and it's deliberately attempting to infect your perspective of the text. Skip straight to the actual text itself so that you're more able to form your own opinions about it. The controversy over Wilson's retelling starts in the very first line. In the Greek, Odysseus is described as polytropos. This word doesn't have an exact meaning in English. Poly means many, and tropos means twisting or turning, and every translator has had to come up with their own way to render this word into English. In 1614, George Chapman used the phrase many a way. In 1725, Alexander Pope called Odysseus the man for wisdom's various arts renowned. In 1965, Richmond Lattimore called Odysseus a man of many ways. And in 1996, Robert Fagles named him a man of twists and turns. So what did Emily Wilson decide to call Odysseus? A complicated man. Gentlemen, let me know if there are any circumstances under which a woman could call you a complicated man, and it's not an insult. In an interview with Wired magazine, Wilson dismissed anybody who disagreed with her word choice as an armchair classicist, showing snobbery as this is just an ad hominem attack. You do not need to be an expert in ancient Greece or classic Greek literature in order to have an opinion about calling Odysseus a complicated man instead of one of the more interesting and nuanced word choices that other translators went for. Emily Wilson does not like the main character of her story. In that giant, boring introduction, she calls Odysseus a master of deceit and a compulsive liar and an unreliable narrator. Wilson shows contempt for Telemachus, and her word choices in his lines portray him as a whiny brat rather than a young man who's desperately in need of some masculine guidance and someone that we're supposed to sympathize with.
Telemachus, who up to this point has been a pretty dopey kid, whose only real initiative is shown when he shuts up his mother, which he does twice. Then at this moment, for the first time, he has an idea of his own. He contradicts his big shot father.
She also made word choices in her translations that portray Polyphemus the Cyclops and the monstrous Lystrygonian warriors as far more sympathetic rather than evil monsters that Odysseus needs to defeat. So is Emily Wilson's Odyssey a piece of trash that people need to have giant hissy fits over? No. Do I think it's the best translation ever? No. Do I think it's the worst? Also no. Do I think it's going to be the reason Christopher Nolan's movie is bad if the movie turns out to be bad? Not the main reason. I think that if you want a version of the Odyssey that you can just plow through relatively quickly and not really have to do a lot of upfront research to understand the basic plot, go for it. If you want something that will give you an accurate portrayal of how ancient Greek people told this story and presumably how they felt about this story, I think this one has a little bit of bias. Have you read Emily Wilson's version of the Odyssey? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Or are you like me and you're kind of more in the middle where you can see the strengths and weaknesses of this particular retelling? I will be eventually reviewing Christopher Nolan's version of the Odyssey as soon as it comes out. But in the meantime, I'm off to continue my own Odyssey here in the US with my family, enjoying the wonderful, wonderful summer sun. Thanks for listening.